Hello and welcome. You're watching People in Profit. I'm Evergrande. Coming up, Europe's farmers in existential crisis. We'll speak to a cereal grower about the sector's challenges and the reasons behind the protests roiling the continent. And as Evergrande is ordered to be wound up by a Hong Kong court, we'll look at the dramatic 3 years that have brought the Chinese real estate sector to its knees. And we'll head to the Salton Sea in Southern California, where lithium reserves could help transform local communities and the national auto industry. Well, throughout France and Europe, tractors are blocking highways and sending a message to governments as well as the public. The people who feed you are having trouble feeding themselves. Subsidies being taken away, burdensome regulations, high production and finance costs, dwindling incomes. The list of farmers' grievances is long and being addressed not just at national governments, but at the European Union as well. Well, for more on this story, let's speak with Robert Dorsmagen, a cereal farmer in the Haute-Marne department in eastern France, and he's also the national director of farming equipment maker Horsch. Thank you so much for joining us on this show. Robert, what do these pictures we just saw of farmers mobilizing in France and around Europe inspire you?
It's not a surprise, really, because I'm working in Germany, in France, and this kind of protest, I think, was we could look forward to see that what is happening now for different reasons. The way people are protesting in several countries of Europe are similar, but sometimes also a little bit different. But now we see the protest in the Netherlands, in Lithuania, in Poland, in Romania, in Germany, in France. This protest is really a new thing about Europe, and it is really new to see also German farmers on the road. It's not common. Normally, we saw, of course, French farmers, which are intended more to go on the road and to protest, and this is a quite new opportunity, and it's something very new. Yeah.
Talking about those German farmers, one of their major sort of bones of contention there is the role that subsidies played in their day-to-day operations on their farms, especially, well, for example, when it comes to the diesel that's used in tractors. Can you give us a sense of how much farmers rely on this state support, on these subsidies?
Yeah, this is one of the problem, but it's maybe the how we call in French is c'est la goutte qui fait déborder le vase.
The last straw.
Yeah, exact. And if you see, we have the same system in France where you pay your diesel and then you get a payback of your tax. And this is about it's a half of the tax in Germany, which is about 21 cents per liter. What we could get back, and then the German government decided for Christmas to get rid of this subsidy, which really we on a hectare it varies. We use about 80 liters to 150 liters. It depends on the way you are working. So it's about 15 to 30 euro per hectare. More costs we have to face, but it's not the main reason. I think it's one of the reasons. Yeah.
The average monthly income for farmers in France in 2021 was around 1860 euros, much lower than the average for private sector employees. As a cereal farmer on your business, are you able to make enough money to run that business efficiently, to turn a profit, to reinvest?
Since 2016, because we have to face also climate change, we have to face more regulation, we have to face new policies we have less pesticides, and we are facing more risks, and we have more regulation. So, before this, I earned normally my salary. Now it is. It becomes more and more risky because we're exposed to more risk. And for instance, this year I'm selling maybe 50% of my production below my costs. So this is not normal, and this is just the part of the cereals. But the main, because I have no animal production, but in the animal production, it's even more drastic.
There are very loud calls for a simplification of regulations that farmers are faced with. Health and safety regulations, environmental regulations. Can you give us an example that really illustrates this point that farmers are advocating for?
The agriculture policy was one of the fundament of Europe, and I'm a really convinced European, really. But now Europe put aims which are not attainable, and regulation which seems to us quite ridiculous. We have to impose when you have cover crops. Europe decides when you have to seed them, when you can destruct them, and so on. Everything is really regulated. Brussels is getting rules which are not always maintainable on our farms. And I'm not growing cows or so on, but I have neighbors in Germany, and they have to make a negative declaration. When you think about that, he has twice a year, he has to declare that he's not using antibiotica. And so for everything, you have to make a declaration. And I mean, 20% or maybe 30% of our time is used in the office just to make declarations, to fit the regulation and so on. And this is not the right way to be competitive. I don't think so.
Robert Dorsmagen, thank you for your insights on this story. As a reminder, you're a cereal farmer in the Haute-Marne department of France and the director of a farming equipment maker, Horsch.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, over 2 years after first defaulting on its debt, Chinese real estate giant Evergrande has been ordered this week to go into liquidation by a Hong Kong court. This is the latest episode in the downfall of what was once one of China's most vibrant economic sectors. Well, France 24's Yuka Royer joins us on set now for some context on this crisis. The inflection point for the Chinese real estate sector was in 2020 when new rules were imposed by the authorities in Beijing.
Well, Charles, in China, home ownership is very high. And as the economy grew, it became a popular form of investment. Now, the authorities decided to crack down on speculative investment, saying houses are for living. They also imposed limits to borrowing on property developers, known as the 3 red lines. Now, first, liabilities should not be greater than 70% of the company's assets. And second, total net debt must not be greater than the market value of the firm. And third, the company must have enough cash to pay off short-term debt. Now, this made it more difficult for companies to borrow money, and many found themselves locked out of credit markets and started defaulting.
Well, Evergrande's model, as well as many other property groups, was built on the assumption that credit would be easy to access.
Well, Evergrande is the world's most indebted company with an estimated $340 billion in liabilities. Country Garden and Sunak also faced huge debt burdens. Now, with easy money, companies developed massive housing projects, ignoring the fact that China's population was shrinking and demand was weakening. At the end of 2022, Country Garden had a real estate portfolio of nearly 130 million square meters of floor area under construction. That's twice the size of Manhattan. In China, apartments are sold before they're completed. So when many of these projects ran into financial difficulty and started to stall, buyers were left with mortgages but no homes.
And can we get a sense of how much the property sector represents for the economy?
Well, the property sector has been a key driver of the Chinese economy, accounting for almost 30% of GDP at times before the crisis began. But that's been changing. In 2019, real estate investment grew almost 10% over the previous year. In 2022, the figure was reversed and property sales plunged nearly 27% year on year. Now, a decline in real estate investment could have negative spillover effects to other sectors, as well as China's trading partners. And also prices of commodities such as metals could fall. Late last year, the International Monetary Fund called on Beijing to take urgent action to restore confidence in the sector and to mitigate its impact on the financial system.
Yuka Roye, thank you for that. In the U.S. now, Joe Biden has made it one of the markers of his first term to combat climate change, in part by granting subsidies for the production of electric cars. But further up the value chain, there's one mineral that is core to this technological revolution: lithium. In Southern California, the Salton Sea is home to 30% of the world's resources, and as you're about to see, could be transformed by the new industry.
The volcanic subsoil on the shores of the Salton Sea is home to one of the world's largest lithium deposits. This industrial site, which produces geothermal energy, is getting ready to extract the mineral, which has become crucial to the Biden administration's green transition.
So this is Hell's Kitchen 2. We drilled this well 2.5 kilometres deep. That will connect that production well back to the main plant where we start the process.
In these tanks, the company filters the brine, extracting lithium and other minerals before re-injecting it into the subsoil. The process required 2 years of testing and a $65 million investment. It's a win-win situation. There's an abundance of renewable energy and a skyrocketing demand for lithium to make batteries for electric cars.
The only way we can get to capacity for this type of demand, where we produce 50 megawatts of power and 25,000 tonnes of lithium hydroxide, is to replicate. Fortunately here, the brine's the same, so we can drill wells over our 6,000 acres that we have here.
The first plant will be operational by mid-2025, and 2 other companies have similar plans. It's an exciting prospect for a region where the unemployment rate is 4 times the national average. So this year, the local college launched a training program to meet the labor demand.
All of these machines simulate what the industries use for the extraction of the lithium. I think this is the big one. This is the one that we've been waiting for, that we anticipate will create thousands of jobs for our local residents, good paying wages.
It's a perfect scenario that could bring the region $1 billion a year, but it's also raising concerns. The Salton Sea is a salt lake that is dying, a victim of drought, so local organizations are pushing for companies to make serious commitments to protect the ecosystem.
Well, that's all for this week. If you want more, you can watch all our previous episodes on France24.com. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on our various social media channels. In the meantime, thanks for watching and stay tuned.